BHS hockey team of 45-46 was described in one Nova Scotia paper as being not sensational and not impressive looking. But looks can be deceiving, because this team knew their hockey. Led by coach Ev Doucette and cheered on by crowds of over 2,000, the BHS team went beyond their furthest expectations. After an unblemished season, Bathurst steamrolled to capture the Northern Conference Championship. Then came the showdown with St. John for provincial honors. Bathurst opened the two-game series with a convincing 7-2 victory before the home crowd. Team member Fred McKay recalls, St. John blamed the loss on poor ice and said they would really beat us when they got us on the artificial ice in St. John. Bathurst High responded with an 11-3 thrashing of the Port City team. Only one hurdle remained, Glace Bay High School. The boys were determined to win it all, but due to the recent end of World War II, money was tight. Manager Henry White stepped up and spearheaded an effort to raise funds, and BHS was on their way to Nova Scotia. When they stepped on the ice, they met an older, bigger team in Glace Bay and knew they were in for a battle. But they soon found the holes in Glace Bay's armor, and with their short passing system, managed to control the game, skating away with a 7-3 victory and the Maritime Senior Interscholastic title. It was the first Maritime title for BHS in 16 years, and when these boys got home, they were met by 1,000 screaming fans. The boys were perched atop a fire truck and took their victory tour through the streets of Bathurst. It was a well-deserved reception for the 45-46 BHS hockey team, true Maritime champions.
There wasn't much else to do in those days because we didn't have TV and things, and when we got a chance to skate and play hockey, everybody seemed awful energetic and awful ambitious in order to try to make the hockey team, because they knew with that there was something for us to do during the week and on Friday night.
The conversation in the wintertime was hockey. You know, it was you slept and you ate hockey and you talked hockey. And it didn't matter who you sat down with. Sports was always involved. And it was just nice, that's all. It was like a big family.
Because at that time, you either played high school hockey or you were playing in an upper league like the Papemakers. I mean, today you have in Bantam, you have Pee Wee, and have a lot of, yes, like the juniors, and you have, but in those days, if you really want to play hockey, mostly high school.
We played with high school hockey against high schools, regardless of, you know, whether they had thousands of people going to their high school, and there was no division like there is today. There's Group A, Group B, or Group C. So we either played with them or we didn't play.
I think we had a mixture of a lot of good young hockey players. We had some, like Freddie McKay would be a real good playmaker. We had some fast guys. We had some good stick landers, because at that time you used to play out in the backyard rinks, and you'd see a guy would pick up the puck and see how long he could keep it himself. And so you had a lot of good stick handlers and fast skaters, and all that gelled together, and it made us a good hockey club.
Generally, all around a bunch of good guys. Like, you know, we all got along very well together, and we had a lot of fun.
Well, I think Freddie Gammon and Freddie McKay were possibly the two best players that we had on the team as far as scorers. They were the people that carried the load for us.
Freddie was a real good playmaker. He was I think, the backbone of the team. Like, as far as when we needed the big goal, he was there. Excellent playmaker.
Freddie Paddy Gammon, a roamer, he'd cover a lot of ground, a lot of ice surface, and he was a nice hockey player.
Well, he was one of the stars. He was, as I remember, he was a hard worker, and he could move the puck up the ice, and but he had a lot of help. There were a lot of other stars on the team too.
Sonny Hall was a big boy, played center, and he gave out everything he had. He had two good wingers, and he could get in the corner and dig the puck out, because he was one of the bigger fellows that we had on the team, possibly weighing about 150 or 155 pounds. And Sonny could dig the puck out for the guys that he was playing with. For he used to do the digging in the corners instead of the wingman because he was a little bit bigger than the other guys. But he was a good scorer and a good hockey player.
Clifford Gannett was a very good defenseman. Small, wiry. And I always said, Clifford went into the corner, he always came out with the puck. You didn't have to worry. His arms, his elbows and stuff might be flying, but when he come out, he was with the puck.
Bobby Pete was pretty top-notch too. Like Bobby was small, wiry. He's very quick in his movements. He was excellent.
Robert Bob Pete was a stout guy, heavy set. He was a very good hockey player. I think he played left wing.
Blair if he needed drive, needed somebody to pick you up and say, okay, fellas, let's get going, that was Blair. He was our captain, he was very good.
A stay-back defenseman, really controlled the puck, and was very dedicated to the team.
Pint was another one of these small fellas. He played on the second line with Ev Jameson and these boys, and he was called Pint because he was a very small fellow, possibly weighing about 130 pounds. And he came down from, he lived in South Bathurst. He came down to play in the high school with us, and for a while he didn't know whether he wanted to play or not. He was just dubious whether he wanted to stay with us because he was a little smaller than the rest. But he always scored a lot of goals for us, especially in some of the games in the North Shore before we got on to Edmundston and St. John, but Pint was always there.
Chuck Gannett, he was one of the defensemen. We only had three, eh? You and Cliff and Chuck. So he got his share of ice time too, and as I say, he's one of the boys and one of the players.
This was Chuck's first year up because he was in grade 10. It was only grade 11 was the school was over in grade 11, not like it is today, grade 12. And Clifford and I were in grade 11 and Chuck was in grade 10. So this was like his first year up with the team that was going someplace. So, but he fit in awful well, Chuck did. He done a good job for us.
Skinny Bina, we called him. He was the regular goaltender, and then Doug Unsworth was the backup.
Well, he was fairly fast. He wasn't too big a man either. You know, he was one of the Vino boys from across the road here, and he wasn't very big. But Cyril had a problem with his eyes, and they never caught on to that. If they would have been shooting from the blue line, they would have scored possibly 20 goals. But they didn't realize that, and Ev said, my gosh, I hope they don't find out. They were tearing around the net in front of the net and trying to put it by him, and there was no way that they were going to put it by him. But if they would have been shooting from the blue line, and Ev said, my God, he told Clifford and I, he said, if you start shooting from the blue line, he said, you better get in front of them, because he said, Skinny can't see them, he said, but he said, if he gets in close, he said, we're all right. So we try to keep the play in close as possible, and he done a heck of a job for us.
Because at that time, you couldn't change your goaltender. You know, not like today, eh? You couldn't say, oh, he's not playing very good, we're going to take him out, put the other play in. He had to be really sick or something in order to be out of the game.
Unsworth was a spare goaltender. He played a few games in the North Shore League before we went up to Edmundston, and Ev used him when he could. He was, like I said before, he was a grade 10 student coming into a grade 11, like with the older boys, and they were just more or less getting them ready for the next year.
Henry, we had lots of laughs with Henry, and he's the guy who had to worry about the money. I remember one time when we were in Glace Bay, we were down pretty low, and I think he gave us all 35 cents to go down and have a hamburger and a glass of milk. And then I guess I've heard stories since then, like what they had to do to try to get money for us to come home after the game.
He looked after if there was any arrangements or anything to be made, he looked after it. We had to go for, like when we went down to Glace Bay, well, he had to make arrangements for us, places for us to stay, and we stayed at private homes that time. We were all billeted out, so. But this was his job, and he did a good job at it.
Louis Hashey was a boy from West Bathurst. He came over to play with us. He played on the second line with Sonny, mostly with Sonny Hall. He was one of the bigger boys, and he always managed to get in there and get a goal or two when we needed it. And he used to do a good job checking. Edward Jameson played on the second line with Sonny and Louis Hashey. And there was one utility man, so Ev was our coach, and he used to use the four players to make up a third line to give everybody a chance to play. But Ev was another fellow that used to give it everything he had.
Ev Doucet was everything. If he could help you, and if he's seen something that you were doing wrong, he'd take you over to one side, and he'd give you that extra time to try to tell you, look, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and I expect a little bit more of you or whatever. But he was the type of guy he was more like a father image, and he was a very fair guy, like, you know. And no, I think everybody respected him. I don't think there's anybody in that team had a bad word for Ev Doucet. He was just an all-around good coach and just like a father to us on a trip. He looked after the players and made sure that there was one person being treated a little bit differently than the other. Everybody was treated equally, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think the Glace Bay team was the one that we really wanted to beat, because to beat Glace Bay would have been a real feather in our hat. A population of about 10,000 going down to play Glace Bay, a bunch of kids 16 years old with only about half enough rigging and about half a dozen hockey sticks. And we went down there and they came out on the ice and they were all great big boys with towels around the neck. We figured we were playing against a bunch of professionals. So naturally we looked at them for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and we went back and we said, boy, we're going in for a game here tonight. We never thought we'd ever beat them. And after we got started and bumped them around a bit, we found a few holes in their armor and we went right at them.
They were a heavy team. You see, they were, to start with, they had grade 12, which gave them a year in age, you know, better than us, and a year's weight. And the weight part really, and size, made quite a difference. And we were out warming up, and these fellas came out. Well, you just looked at them and just hear them go by, whoosh, whoosh, you know, and holy jeepers, you just started to think.
Well, I can still remember our coach, Ev Doucet, between the first and second period, saying the only hope we have to beat this team is keep your passes short, don't cough up the puck, and hope we get good goaltending. And that's exactly what we had. We had a goaltender that the next day in the local paper, he was the headlines. He couldn't do anything wrong. It was his night.
Cyril bought I don't know how many papers, as many as he could carry. And he was giving them out to everybody, people from Glace Bay and everything. And he'd tell them, now that goaltender they're talking about, that's me. And everybody getting a kick out of him about that. But he was really good that night. There's no question about it.
So we had great goaltending, and we had a team that we wanted to win that cup. I'd say that was why we won that cup.
The games were played on Friday night, and so of course that was the night off. And the week just built up to Friday night when we could go to the hockey game and cheer our team. And you know, they would get large crowds, over 2,000.
When they came to the games, they used to wear the colors of the high school. It was black and red, and they'd be standing there with those. The colors were flying, and they're hooping and hollering, which I think was an incentive for us too.
Because the hockey team was winning, and when you're winning in Bathurst, you pack the house. Bathurst was always noted for that. When you got a big crowd or you had a good hockey team, you could fill the rink. And we had a good hockey team for a couple of years, and we used to fill her.
We had a lot of good times. And I think that, as Blair said a while ago, we did the best that we could for the fans, and they showed their appreciation by coming.
And as far as being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I'm awful glad that it happened now. I wish it would have happened a couple of years ago when Sonny Hall was still living, because this was one of Sonny Hall's main ambitions, to be installed into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I think that to get a guy in before it's too late or before he's gone is the way to do it.
And as I say, I think that team deserved it because they were good. In fact, I think if we'd had funds, Ev was prepared to take us further, you know. Perhaps up to Ontario somewhere to see where we would shape, but we just couldn't think of it. We had no money.
It's quite an honor. I'm quite proud of it. It's very nice, a nice feeling to know that the people, like after all these years, think that we deserve to be into the Hall of Fame. It's quite an honor, I'd say. I feel very, very good about it.
The Bathurst High School hockey team of 1945-46 were an excellent example of hard work and perseverance, and will now be forever remembered for their great accomplishments, with an induction into the 1996 Bathurst Sports Hall of Fame.